Before Quincy Jones was a legend, he was just a boy with hungry eyes and music in his bones. Born in 1933 on the south side of Chicago, Quincy's early life was scarred by poverty, violence, and abandonment. His mother, a brilliant woman, was taken away to a mental hospital when he was just 7. His father struggled to raise him and his brother alone, eventually moving the family to the harsh streets of Seattle. It was there, amid broken streetlights and jazz clubs glowing in the night, that Quincy found his calling. One night, he snuck into a local armory and saw a band warming up. Brass, bass, soul. He had never felt anything like it. That night, he made a decision that would change music history. He would not become a gangster. He would become a musician. Quincy devoured music like it was survival. He taught himself trumpet. He studied harmony, theory, composition. By the time he was a teenager, he was playing with legends like Ray Charles, a blind pianist who taught him that music wasn't something you read. It was something you lived. At just 20 years old, Quincy Jones was touring Europe with Lionel Hampton. He soaked up the culture, the melodies, the freedom he didn't feel back home. He knew then he wanted to be more than a performer. He wanted to be a composer, a conductor, a creator of worlds, and nothing, not racism, not poverty, not the music industry, would stop him. In the 1950s and 60s, Quincy broke barriers in a world that wasn't ready for him. He became one of the first black composers to work on major Hollywood films. He arranged for legends, Count Basie, Sarah Vaughan, Dinah Washington. His sound was elegance wrapped in edge, a fusion of classical, jazz, and something entirely his own. But it wasn't easy. The industry liked his music, but not always his face. He was told he could compose but not conduct, write but not lead. Quincy ignored the rules. In 1964, he became the first African-American executive at a major record label, Mercury Records. He didn't just open doors, he kicked them off the hinges. And then came Michael. It was the late 1970s. Michael Jackson, young, hungry, moonwalking into adulthood, needed a new sound, a new identity. He turned to the man who understood how to mix soul with sophistication. The result? Off the Wall. A record that redefined pop. But that was just the beginning. 3 years later, in 1982, Quincy and Michael released an album so big it broke the charts. Thriller. It wasn't just an album, it was a revolution. It fused funk, rock, soul, and horror into something no one had ever heard before. 7 top 10 hits. 8 Grammys. It became the best-selling album of all time. But behind the scenes, Quincy was fighting for every detail, every bass line, every breath. He demanded excellence. He refused mediocrity. He protected Michael's talent like a diamond in a violent storm. Together, they changed music. Forever. And Quincy didn't stop. He went on to produce We Are the World, uniting dozens of the world's greatest artists to fight famine in Africa. It wasn't just a song, it was a movement. Throughout the 1980s and 90s, Quincy shaped the sounds of generations. From hip-hop to film scores, TV to symphonies, he wore more hats than most could imagine. Producer, composer, arranger, label head, philanthropist. But his greatest gift? He heard the world not as it was, but as it could be. He often says he's lived 10 lives in one, and maybe he has. But Quincy Jones never wanted to be just a survivor of history. He wanted to shape it. In his later years, as his hair turned silver and his hands slowed down, Quincy began talking more openly. Not just about music, but about pain, about race, about power. He spoke of growing up black in America, where genius was often ignored unless it was wearing the right color. He spoke of watching doors slam shut, then learning how to build his own house. "I've been called every name in the book," he once said, "but the only thing I answer to is the music." And for Quincy, the music has always been bigger than the industry. It was about breaking barriers, making people feel, making people see. Even as he became a global icon, with Grammys stacked like bricks and honorary degrees handed out like candy, Quincy Jones stayed grounded in the same truth he learned as a boy on the south side of Chicago. If they won't give you a seat at the table, bring a folding chair. In the 1990s and 2000s, he started mentoring artists like Oprah Winfrey, Will Smith, and a generation of black producers who once believed the top was off limits. He helped launch The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, not just as a sitcom, but as a cultural blueprint, where a black kid from West Philly could be both funny and royal. He co-founded Vibe magazine to create a space where hip-hop and R&B weren't just entertainment, but history. And still, Quincy kept pushing forward. In 2001, he received the Kennedy Center honor. In 2013, he was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And in 2018, a Netflix documentary, Quincy, let the world peek into his unfiltered life, his battles with addiction, his near-death experiences, his complicated family, his relentless perfectionism. In one scene, he looks over the city of Los Angeles, older and slower now, but still burning with purpose. "There's so much more to do," he says softly. "You can't stop, not if you know the truth." Because to Quincy Jones, silence is complicity. And music? Music is resistance, music is healing, music is revolution. He once said, "The minute you stop learning, you're dead." And even in his 90s, Quincy is still asking questions, still listening, still curious. He speaks about AI and digital music with fascination. He studies the youth, not to criticize, but to understand. He mentors young composers, telling them, "Don't copy my path, find your own, but feel every note." For Quincy, the goal was never just hits. It was harmony, between people, between cultures, between generations. He spent his whole life trying to orchestrate a world that listens more, hates less, and feels deeply. He stood beside legends, but never forgot his roots. He climbed to the top, but never pulled the ladder up behind him. He made money, but he made meaning. And that's why his story matters. Because Quincy Jones didn't just define America's sound. He helped it find its soul. A soul born from jazz and pain and poverty. A soul shaped in church basements, smoky bars, and segregated streets. A soul that rose anyway. And when the future tells the story of music, of power, of people who dared to dream beyond the lines they were born into, it will start with a boy who picked up a trumpet in Seattle and played the world awake.